Okay, shall I start? I have two sutta passages that might be interesting to talk about. And the first one is about jati, about birth or being born, how I like to translate it. And the second is about bhava, which usually is translated as being or existence or becoming. So maybe I just read the first bit about jati, and it's from the Majjhima Nikaya 9, Samaditi Sutta. Because, friend, a noble disciple understands being born, jati, and the appearance of being born, the cessation of being born, and the practice leading to the cessation of being born, to that extent a noble disciple is of right view. Is his view straight? Is he endowed with unwavering confidence in regard to Dhamma? Has he arrived at this true Dhamma? And what, friend, is being born? What is the appearance of being born? What is the cessation of being born? What is the practice leading to the cessation of being born? The being born of those and those beings into this and that class of beings, their birth, descent, production, manifestation of the aggregates, obtaining of the spheres. This, friend, is called being born. With the appearance of bhava is the appearance of being born. With the cessation of bhava is the cessation of being born. Just this noble eightfold path is the practice leading to the cessation of being born, that is, right view up to right composure.
So what's your question?
The question is how to correctly understand being born, because I think there are a lot of different views about this, and what strikes me most about this passage is that it says birth or being born is the manifestation of the aggregates, the obtaining of the spheres, ayatana. And I think when people usually hear the word birth, they think about like a baby coming out of the womb. So, but like parturition, and I think it's not what's being aimed at here, because the manifestation of the aggregates and the obtaining of the spheres for contact or for experience, it cannot be observed from a third-person perspective. It can only be recognized from the inside. And yeah,
well, the most important thing there, practically speaking, that you want to understand is that when it says understanding of being born, it's something that's still enduring right here and now. So it's not the birth event from the past, which you haven't even, you certainly were not witnessing it, although you were being born, you have no memory of it. It's the recognition of through the current being, you know that birth is enduring there, because the senses are enduring there, the ayatanas are there, thus the birth is there. So if you understand that, you have understood bhava. If you understand bhava, you have understood the birth. And that's why the right view is tied with it. It's not like, you have figured out how you came out of the womb or something biologically. No, it's understanding that presently speaking, your birth endures there because you're still alive with the functioning senses. So the reason why this is practically relevant is, your whole life, your whole existence, your whole bhava is equally determined by the existence of your physical organs. They were born, produced in this world, came into this being, so to speak, and are enduring there randomly, completely out of the sphere of your control. And it's even inconceivable for you, how would existence be without the senses? Literally, it's inseparable from it. Yet you have no say in it. So if you truly understand birth, you have abandoned bhava, or a great deal of it. which means you have abandoned the ownership of it as well. So just the recognition of that physical, material necessity that has been produced through birth, that still endures there as a basis for your existence. And that's something that you will never be able to own or repossess or take charge of.
So what does it mean that birth is said to have bhava as condition?
Well, it means that fundamentally the whole you haven't been freed from ignorance, so you're still bound to the same five aggregates that keep getting reproduced here and there, through which your bhava excels even more. It's a vicious circle. It's not there is a being first that fuels your birth. Yeah, bhava that's what I mean, it's mutually determining. Because you're not free from bhava now, if you die, you haven't freed yourself from the five aggregates. Means you're going to find the reproduced form elsewhere, bound by that bhava that you haven't freed yourself from. And when you find the reproduced form elsewhere, you keep acting out of it with that ignorance that kept you bound to it, and then you are maintaining your bhava or even bringing even more bhava to fulfillment, which then results in even worse rebirth later on. Because you have sensual bhava, material bhava, immaterial bhava, all these layers that people would be adding up to it. But either way, bhava is there, which is why you are constantly, or rather perpetually, still wandering within the framework of samsara, which is your five aggregates.
Okay, I think the next sutta passage that fits quite nicely. This is Bhava Sutta, it's called, and it's the Buddha speaking with Ananda. And Ananda asked the Buddha, Bhava, Bhava, Venerable Sir, is said. To what extent now, Venerable Sir, is there Bhava? And the Buddha answers, if, Ananda, there were no action, kamma, showing results in the realm of sensuality, in the realm of form, in the realm of no form, would sensuality bhava, form bhava, no form bhava be discerned? No, Venerable Sir. Thus, Ananda, action is the field, consciousness the seed, and craving the moisture. The intention and aspiration of beings, hindered by non-knowledge, avidya, and fettered by craving, is established in a lower, in a middling, in a refined realm. Thus, there is in the future the production of bhava again. Thus, Ananda, is there bhava.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I said. What sutta is that?
That is Anguttara Nikaya 337. 77, sorry.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying in the beginning. Practically speaking, either you look at bhava, you look at birth, you want to be seeing the same principle, the same thing, which is fundamentally the nature of that presently enduring phenomena as anicca, as unownable, and thoroughly develop that. Now, obviously, most of us, you cannot just stick with one theme constantly. Sooner or later, you run out. So whether you approach it through bhava, or paticcasamuppada, or jati specifically, or salayatana, you want to be doing the same thing, just finding basically an inspiration from all these different angles. But it does come down to repetition of that work, to like undoing that bhava pretty much through understanding and repetition of those reflections of non-ownership and so on. Dissatisfactoriness, disease, inherent disease in lack of ownership of basically your own foundations.
So could you say that bhava is in principle this mutual dependence of consciousness on phenomena, on namarupa?
Well, theoretically, but practically you're never going to see it like that. You cannot step outside of your experience and see these two sticks that support each other as your bhava, because you are one of them at a time. So the only way to understand it is to practically undo it. And that is important to emphasize, because often people who have a sort of inclination towards intellectual understanding, which is, as good as any other way to start, well, the problem with that is you tend to overdo it. So then your intellectual ideas you start assuming as if they factually stand for what bhava is and namarupa determination is, but that's impossible, because that would require you to step outside of yourself to see it in such manner, and that cannot be done. So you use the intellectual ideas to set you in a direction, but then it has to come down to you restraining yourself from giving into that side and focusing on maintaining the right order, as in, no, this bhava right here, right now, my existence as a whole, that is first. And I must not think about it by abandoning it. If I think about a bhava, it must be done within this currently experience as a whole that exists. So that's what I mean, the only way to understand it is to actually undo it. Free yourself from bhava, you have full understanding of bhava. Any other thing, you mustn't forget that it's going to be on the intellectual level, and it can be sort of you could easily fall into assumption and take that intellectual idea as factual understanding of bhava, or at least pertaining to that understanding of bhava. But yet, practically, your bhava hasn't diminished, made no difference to it, which means there is no understanding of bhava. Doesn't matter how pleasing your idea might be.
So, to discern bhava in my experience now, would that be synonymous with discerning greed, hatred, or delusion?
It could, if it leads you to it, so to speak. But I don't know what greed, aversion, delusion mean to you as ideas. So I can't say yes, because when you think about greed, it might be abstract. So it will certainly not stand for the presently enduring bhava as a whole. What you want to think basically is find a basis. Like, ask yourself, why do you want to understand bhava? Where is the relevance there? Why is it relevant, understanding bhava? What should result in? Like here and now, not in 10 years, in 15 years, tomorrow. Now, if I were to tell you must understand bhava, or if you were to think that, why? Why would you need to understand bhava? What do you think?
To understand what is meant by its cessation.
But why is that relevant? Why is understanding cessation of bhava relevant to you? Why does it matter to you?
That image is associated with what it means to be free from suffering in a way, or karma. Yeah, there is a self acting.
Sure. So freedom from suffering is what matters to you, which is why you want to understand bhava. So where does the suffering happen? Where does it occur? If it were to occur, where would it be? Where would you suffer? Would your suffer as an idea? Would your suffering be just an idea? Would it be an experience as a whole? Would you be affected by it?
It would be, I suppose, emotional on a level of...
Exactly. So it would be on the level of the feeling of the experience as a whole. If it's suffering, it's something you cannot remain indifferent to. So that's where you understand your bhava. There is no reason to do something else and understand it elsewhere, because, as you said it yourself, that's why understanding of bhava is relevant, because freedom from suffering is relevant. Which means you don't go elsewhere where you don't suffer to understand bhava that will somehow in return free from suffering. Then you're just revolving around the idea of bhava. So that's what it's meant by concrete thinking, whereby sure, you think, you contemplate, but don't allow yourself to go into abstract. And that happens when you forget or you lose the context of your current situation and the currently enduring feeling, which is always the basis for your practice. I said that many times in my talks, as in the suttas. I think Saman Gutternika, I cannot remember the exact number, but it says things will converge on feelings. Feeling is the converging point for your experience, basically. So you want to understand bhava, you understand the nature of present enduring feeling. Why? Because that's already what bhava is. That's what being is. And that's the problem with approaching it philosophically, is it already starts as an idea. In philosophy, even in phenomenology and existentialism, when they started with like a investigation of being, as Heidegger would say, but inevitably had to divorce it, and it sort of became like an abstraction. And sure enough, Heidegger in his later work mystified it himself. It became the being, you know. You can't even express it in the words anymore. Because it's, unless you have the right context to know where you must stick to and stay on when you do your contemplation, it will take you into this idea that you will now assume it stands for the being, while factually it doesn't. Because if your understanding of that idea were right, you would be free from being here and now, which means you would be becoming anagami, free from sensual being altogether. So that's how you measure your being, by diminishing of the pressure of your desire that's expressed in regard to craving on the level of that converging point of your own feelings. So it's a useful thing to keep in mind, like whichever way you were to approach the suttas, like whether you read this sutta and now you want to think about jati, as I said, or pratisma, you must think it on the basis of the concrete situation of you here and now. So what sometimes people do is, like, they're so focused on here and now, they dismiss their thinking, and then they start to spiritualize and mystify here and now, just be present and aware. Or people forget here and now and then get completely lost in their thoughts. But actually, those things are not mutually exclusive. You can learn, it just takes effort and discipline, how to concretely thinking your current situation. And that's where your thoughts cease to misconceive what's basically enduring there, and start to correspond to it more and more accurately. And that's when things become apparent. The only time things become apparent is when things were there but you were not seeing them. You wouldn't say something becomes apparent when it suddenly appears for you. No, it becomes apparent when you read this, oh, it was there but I haven't seen it, now it's apparent that it was there. So the concrete thinking should enable you to, while you not lose the mindfulness of your current context, recollectedness, composure of your situation, to think about various factors of that experience. Whether it's the present enduring being, of the sensual kind, or converging point of feelings on account of which suffering can still pressure you, or jati, whatever way you want to take it, you want to see it as a phenomenon here and now, not as an idea, and then engage with it on the level of that idea. It might have to start as an idea, but you want to find that idea apparent here and now, not like you go where the idea is and then engage with it over there. That will just result in more ideas.
With regards to the sutta that refers to jati as descending, in brackets, from the womb, I mean, this might be taking it to abstracting it, but so if I were to relate that to now my experience, I would interpret it as meaning this body that was born into a womb, descended into a womb. I am appropriating, and so by understanding my appropriation of this body, I'm coming to understand jati in the context of that particular sutta.
Well, yeah, but like what you want to see is understand not specifically how coming out of womb happens. That is irrelevant. That's not what this is about. It's just a general description of how this current form has originated, because the being was still there. So you want to dwell on the nature, like what is the nature of coming out of womb in case of a baby? Did you have any say in how you're going to come out, in when you're going to come out?
If I don't identify with this body, then I'm not identifying with jati, or if that makes
Well,
sense.
yes, sure. Yeah, you can say it by not taking up this body, then you cease to own that production of this body, and you won't be taking another one. However, identification, it's not on a level of your choice. You can't just choose to not identify. Identification is the result of underlying causes that you haven't uprooted. So it's a symptom of the problem, not the problem. And that's why I keep saying you must discern anicca as underlying causes, like in a true sense, like uncontrollable, unownable, applying to you right here, right now. So even when you think abstractly about your actual physical coming out of your mother's womb, you want to think about it that still applies to you now. That's how you are right here, right now, thinking about that. So that kind of material sort of events in the world, basically that's what sense organs are. And you have absolutely no say in that. You haven't had say in the birth of those things, so how could you possibly have say in the ending of those things? Inconceivable. And most importantly, that whole contemplation is applicable to you here and now, and you should be feeling it if you're doing it rightly. Probably feeling it as a form of uneasiness, because that's the direct result of seeing anicca correctly. Anicca dukkha. So the fact that a random body being born in the world is something you cannot be indifferent towards because of your own ignorance should be a problem for you. The fact that that birth applies to you because you don't know how to not own it should be a problem to you. So you realize it's not about understanding the birth and how you come out, it's about understanding that gratuitous ownership of it and undoing that, and then you don't care how you came out and what happened. All you know is it doesn't concern you anymore. That means you have stopped identifying with it, colloquially speaking.
May I like to come back to this metaphor that is given in the sutta, and where it says that action or kamma is the field, and consciousness the seed, and craving the moisture. And frankly, I can't really make much of that simile, except I can reformulate it a bit and say, okay, so what it says is that the seed of consciousness, moistured by craving, grows in a field of action. And the sutta says, okay, that is how there is bhava. But I don't know what it means. I cannot see it directly.
Yeah, so you want to basically find something more practical that can stand for that principle, such as your current level of your bhava is kama bhava. I presume you're not free from sensuality, otherwise you wouldn't be asking me these questions. So what is the greatest, the easiest, the simplest exemplification of sensuality? It's sensual desire. So can be used as a representative of sensual being. Obviously, sensual being, any existence on account of being bound with the senses, not necessarily just sensual craving, but the most obvious example is the sensual craving. So, and you know that already, based on your previous experience before you were a monk, the more you want things, the more you end up wanting other things later. So the more you cultivate your desire, the more the desire grows. The more you give in to acting out of desire, the harder the desire will pressure you later on. And giving in to acting out of desire, it's exactly that action that keeps fueling the already existing that level of that sensual being. So that's why it's not a static thing. It's something you maintain through your action. And that's what I said even before you read that sutta. When you're born, you keep acting in wherever you were born, using whatever you were given in that birth. And unknowingly, you are already expanding and proliferating and fueling and feeding that being further. It grows. But sure, if you start practicing sense restraint, even without any knowledge of Dhamma, if you're simply abstaining from sensual desire, you are now preventing. You're not adding moisture, so to speak, to that seed. So it will not grow as much. That's why even like being restrained and celibate is a meritorious in itself, as the Buddha would describe. And people who live their life in such manner will have better rebirth next, because their being has diminished from that coarser sense and became more refined and lofty. So their next production of their body, so to speak, will be in a corresponding realm. But practically speaking, acting out of desire fuels desire. Acting out of being fuels the being. So the fact that you are not indifferent to when you act out of a pressure of sense pull, sense organs pulling you towards something, means you're already bound with that base. And that's what means that consciousness is there established upon it, like a seed. So it will proliferate with giving in to that pressure. But if you don't give in to the pressure, it cannot proliferate. But I think the problem you might have is, I have a feeling you're still trying to understand these things from the external point of view. You want them to fit perfectly on the level of the abstract idea, and it's impossible to see those things like that because you are the one who is conscious. So you can only see it by undoing it here and now. And it's a matter of choice for you. You choose, like you have the idea of it and that's fine, but you also have a choice to not give in, to pursue it on the level of idea and try and rework it here and now. But you would probably more often be choosing to give in to the idea and want to have it explained and cleared and fixed in order to apply it here and now. But those are two different things actually. And I know I can relate to that. So yes, you can think about the consciousness, and you should, but don't mistake that to be the actual factual phenomenon of consciousness that endures in your experience here and now. Because you can't think that. You can only undo it. Undo its support. Stop cultivating that field where that consciousness will grow, and then it will eventually cease to exist there, paired with it.
So how to undo it?
Well, this is how I'm saying. So you start by recognizing where is the converging point. Even for your ideas, by the way. I'm sure you feel pressure to understand the simile of consciousness. And where do you feel that pressure here and now? On the level of your feeling. And you give in to the pressure means you give in to the craving of your feeling for the sake of not maintaining supposedly craving in your feeling. Because craving is the moisture. So you undo it by not acting out of craving on the level of your thoughts, speech and action. And that includes figuring out the simile that the Buddha gave that you want to understand through your craving. So it's not that I'm saying you must stop thinking, but I'm saying you must stop thinking out of craving. And that takes time to learn. And that's the problem. Sometimes people get a hint of that. Oh, craving is the problem. But they blame the thinking. And that's often when you hear the teachers and whatever, traditions, and so, just stop thinking. Because it's like what Nyanavera would say, throwing the baby with the bath water. Instead of, wait, I need to keep the baby. So I need to keep the thinking, throw away the craving. But you don't know how to do that, so you throw away the whole thing and you think you dealt with craving. But then that becomes rooted in craving. Because you are not differentiating between craving and your thoughts. Or thoughts infected with craving and thoughts not infected with craving. You just dismiss the whole thing, which means craving goes underground and now you can't even see it. So when you have thoughts, contemplations, basically try and maintain the perspective on what feeling is enduring while you're thinking it, and whether you're pressured towards thinking it, or you are kind of in control of those thoughts and could just stop thinking if you want to. Or is it more pressuring, urgent, in which case you know the craving is involved. That's why if you master this, like the 5 ways of thinking, the Buddha would say craving will completely diminish and you can think whatever you want and you cannot think whatever you don't want to think. You would be in charge of your thoughts. Not because you learn how to manipulate the thoughts, it's because you clear them of craving. That's what was preventing you before to be in charge of them. Because craving had charge over you. And then you were acting like a puppet towards what that craving wanted. So that's how you would undo the bhava, or understand consciousness and free it. Or provide the moisture and the fertile ground. Because if there is no craving, like in case of an arahant, any action that is done, it will not result in proliferation of consciousness and being. Because the main nourishment, the nutrient, is gone. So that's why arahant can still act without any implications or repercussions, because there is no being involved.
I think how all these answers which we were giving, it's like a big principle. So actually, whatever question you ask, it's pretty much the same answer. So it's like you will be stupid to ask me a question because it will be okay. I know the answer.
Well, you're not gonna get, like, everything boils down to anicca, dukkha, and the experience of anatta. Literally, all the suttas, you will boil down to this one thing, one statement. But it's seeing that same principle through all these different angles. That's what practice is. Because, as I said, it's virtually impossible for your mind to just stick to one way. Theoretically, it's possible, but it's not going to work in practice. But you want to be finding these things, not just applying the answer, oh yes, this is anicca, this is dukkha. Each time you start your contemplation through whichever way, you want to discern the same apparent things in that contemplation. So that's the drilling, and he trains himself thus, as the Buddha would say. So you are repeating the same thing through all these different angles and everywhere, left and right, all range of motion. Because that's the whole point. You want to arrive at the same conclusion, not theoretically, but each time see it as an apparent thing. Because yes, that's exactly why many people would, oh yeah, okay, I got the sense of anicca, I understood it, relatively clearly, and they think that's it. So now whenever I come across any problem or anything I haven't understood, I just paste this information of anicca that I picked up from the suttas. I just say, that's anicca, see anicca, and just repeat to myself as a mantra until I forget about a problem and see, I freed myself from anicca. No, each time you need to rework your way right through the problem and find that anicca apparent. And if you did find it, it will cease to cause you suffering, that problem, while it is still there. Because truly understanding anicca is what frees you from that dukkha of implicit dukkha of anicca. Not seeing anicca is why it is felt as dukkha. So every single time, whatever it is that you think or approach, you can take that as the end, as the goal. Oh, okay, so on these terms, let me discern that phenomenon of anicca. Unknowability, changeability, subject to change, impermanence, whichever way you want to translate it. Translate it in every way, because it gives you also different angles to approach it. But you want to see it enduring as such. Not just impose your thought over it.
As the intention, for example, like that I find myself I don't know, lying in bed at night or something, and there is a realization that this is the intention in my mind, or then you're reflecting on the nature of
What intention? Give me an example.
I suppose what I'm asking is like, yeah, so it's like this practice you describe of finding anicca in the situation you find yourself in, like, yeah, you have to really dig. It's not like pasting it. It's like basically it's like if you discern suffering or like greed, hatred, or delusion, more specifically in my experience, then you're like digging to find what am I ignoring, basically. Where is this ignoring of anicca taking place?
Yeah, because that's it. Everything would boil down to that. You're either seeing anicca or you're not seeing it, ignoring it. So that's why it's often not about, figuring out how your intentions come to be and what prompted them. It's more like, what is the presently enduring feeling in regard to this present enduring intention? Because that's where your craving will be rooted in. And that's why often you'll be acting out of those intentions, revolving around them, having more thoughts. It's because they happen to be pressuring you, and they're pressuring you because you were unaware of the anicca of those phenomena.
It's always pain. There's always this.
Yeah.
Whether it's craving for pleasure or
exactly
anger.
Presence of craving means presence of suffering. To the same extent craving is there, to that extent suffering is there. It's not like sometimes craving disappears but suffering stays. No, literally, presence of craving is what is felt as suffering from the point of view of feeling. Nothing else. So if you remove the craving as presence, there is nothing to be felt. It's not like craving then produces this process that results in suffering. No. The Four Noble Truths is the presence of craving, presence of suffering. Absence of craving, absence of suffering. So you want to then learn how to think without a craving, act without a craving, live without a craving. You will then learn how to be free from suffering perpetually. And that's what the Noble Eightfold Path would be. So yeah, that disease, uneasiness that you discern on account of anything that's presently enduring, yeah. So now you want to see, what is my attitude, what is my intention, what is my current feeling in regard to this uneasiness that I'm discerning? Am I trying to get rid of it? Because uneasiness in itself is not suffering. Feeling in itself is not suffering. Every feeling counts as suffering while you're not free from craving. But in itself, aggregate of feeling is not what dukkha is. So even that uneasiness, it's only suffering because implicitly you want to get rid of it. And you're not seeing that fundamental, subtle, yet kind of obvious attitude that you know about, but you're not seeing it. In this instance, on this level, it's not apparent to you, hence suffering is there.
And there's always ignorance, there's always some ignoring taking place actively right now, like unless you're an arhat.
Well, yeah, I think it's like what I said in one of those talks. You have to learn, like, it's part of the existence, part of the five. You can't think about everything all the time. It's impossible. Even the Buddha couldn't do that. You think about certain things, which means other things must be sort of forgotten at a time. But it's when you are not free from craving, that forgetting means ignoring. When you are free from craving, that forgetting is literally just forgetting. You're not thinking about those things specifically. But when you do remember, it doesn't come back with that ignoring, with that layer of not lack of understanding with it. So whatever arises is fully, clearly understood. when it arises, through its own arising, through its own enduring and manifestation. So ignoring is not this mystical. It's not this mystical thing that I must find out things that I ignore. Ignoring is that attitude that you have right here and now. For example, not being thoroughly clear about the nature of present enduring feeling that you have on that right level. Not of a specific feeling, but presently enduring feeling, the mood, you are not clear about it. Which means, to the extent you're not clear about it, to that extent there will be some gratuitous resistance to it or leaning towards it. In other words, craving will be there. And that clarity I'm talking about that you must develop, it's not on the level of figuring it out as an idea, but it's clarity right here, right now, on the level of your attitude towards your own feeling. Are you resisting it? Are you ignoring it? Are you indulging it when it's pleasant? And that's something you need to learn how to sustain throughout the day. That peripheral recognition of present enduring feeling of this kind, of that kind, doesn't matter. You're not trying to get rid of it, you're not trying to prolong it, and you're certainly not trying to forget about it or ignore it. You can forget other things if you want, but not the point where things converge. Not the mindfulness of your body, for example. Like that's why these things are reference point or anchors in Satipatthana, whichever you want to translate it.
When you say where they converge, is it meaning any sort of proliferated manifestation?
No, it means where things meet. So you have this idea, for example, this intention that it's pressuring you to do something, say it's an unwholesome intention. Well, the craving is not in the intention, nor in your action, so to speak, acting out of intention. The craving is that simultaneously present feeling with that intention. So things meet there. So on one hand you have one intention, but then you have another felt feeling, and your craving is basically on the level of the feeling, not on the level of intention. But they meet in that feeling. So you are acting very clearly, very consciously, and that's why craving appears to be part of, like, in this intention, in this thought, in this desire, in this product of my action. But it's not. It's always on it's regard to how you feel, not what you intend. But those things are inseparable, feeling and intention. But if you stop maintaining craving in regard to your feeling, then you can intend, you can feel, you can perceive, and none of that will be bundled and together with that craving. So the feeling will cease to serve as a convergence point. Only for as long as there is feeling, they will be converging on the... only as long as there is craving, they will be converging on the feeling. Things with that craving. Or in other words, that converging is that pressure, that contact.
Like sense of self? Or no?
Well, that's all comes out of it. It's that basically direction that craving gives you. Like, for example, as I said, you discern the phenomenon of this universal uneasiness, but you haven't discerned the direction of your resistance away from it. The direction of, I don't want this. Yet it's there with it. Met with it. Gratuitously, but it's there. And that's why you suffer. Not because things are uneasy, but because you keep trying to sort of squeeze yourself out of it. You want it to go away. You want to get rid of it. And that's why it's unpleasant, which is why you want to get rid of it, which is why it's unpleasant, which is why you want to get rid of it. So it's another vicious circle.
So this is essentially the sutta on the two darts, isn't it? Where it says that your Puthujjana does not know how to deal with unpleasant feeling other than putting sensual pleasure over against it. And then aggravating the whole situation.
Yeah, so when he struck with the first dart of uneasiness, he struck with the second dart of not knowing the escape from that uneasiness. As in, he will be resisting it. And that's the true suffering. The noble disciple doesn't get the second dart. So all he has is uneasiness, but he's not resisting it. And because Puthujjana doesn't know the escape from it, the only escape he knows is to then try to basically cover it up with pleasure of any other kind. And that's where sensuality is sort of intoxicating on two levels. Not just because it provides you with pleasure, but it simultaneously masks the uneasiness, covers up the pain, which is the only way of you at the time, the only way you know how to deal with the pain. That's why sensuality needs to be restrained first, out of faith. And then if you don't give in to sensuality as a way of masking the fact that things are universally uneasy, then your attitude of gratuitous attitude of resisting the uneasiness will become apparent on the level it is, not in theory. And then that's when you don't suffer. And then basically sensuality becomes redundant. You don't need it anymore, because now you don't suffer to begin with. You are not hit with that, like the tone of pain that's been pulled out. But it's the recognition of that uneasy feeling, pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling is not where the craving is. It's in your attitude towards present enduring feeling. Not, oh, I felt this, thus I crave. No. Currently, now, while I'm thinking or trying to figure these things out, what is the present enduring feeling? That's where the craving, that leaning towards direction or leaning away direction or basically turning a blind eye direction will be maintained and cultivated. So that's why, like, developing mindfulness that teaches you basically how to stop being absorbed in immediate objects of your senses, so that you can see what currently feeling, because feeling is not in your senses, nor your sense organs, nor in the sense objects. It's pretty much as that background to it, as a context to those things. So you want to learn how to maintain the sight of that context on that peripheral level. That's when those interrogations we did on YouTube, like, oh, how do I feel? Not theoretically, not abstractly. While I'm asking the question, what is my current feeling? What is my current overall feeling enduring? Okay, not okay, a bit of both. Which one is it? And then learn. It's ambiguous to begin with, but the more you look in that direction, the clearer it will become. You will not make it an object of your attention. It's going to stay a feeling, but now you cannot ignore it. Uneasiness endures. Easiness endures. Neither endures. And that's already the first step towards kind of uprooting that gratuitous leaning towards it when it's pleasant and leaning away when it's unpleasant, that you are not even aware of, yet you're doing it. But the only reason you're not aware of it is because that whole dimension, that peripheral sort of context, hasn't been developed. The mind hasn't been developed enough.
So this is then where the sense restraint comes in. If there's no escape from unpleasant feeling other than sensual pleasure for the ordinary person.
Yes, sense restraint, yes, but also, see, many people would be sense restrained, but then they would misunderstand the Dhamma and meditation, and then their practice would be about focusing on various objects of their attention. Usually it comes down to focusing on the objects of your senses. Whether it's the object of touch, my body, whether it's sight, sounds, whatever else, and that's already the direction you will not discern craving in. That, where you are focusing, it's already the product of you either leaning towards pleasure or leaning away from pain or ignoring the neutral feeling. You can't make that feeling an object of your attention in that sense. It's always peripheral. You will not find a feeling in your body either. It's always fundamentally feeling, every feeling, as the sutta says, chetas, it's mental.
Now, would you say that when Vedana is discerned peripherally, by not running away from it through sensuality, then to see that feeling arises in dependence upon a sense base, and then to abandon sense base as basically not mine, it has been born as we talked earlier, but I had no say in that sense base being there, then am I not pulling the rug away from underneath the feeling and the appropriation that goes with it?
Well, you can't just like abandon the sense base in that sense. So if you're aware of the present enduring feeling that makes you either lean towards the sense base or try to get rid of the things experienced through your sense base or ignore it, being aware of that feeling already, as I said, already impedes that gratuitous attitude of craving towards, against, or turning away from it. So if you sustain that, you will cease to act out of senses, you will cease to be bound by them eventually. So the product of your appropriation of the senses is a symptom of your craving in regard to the feeling. It's not the problem in itself. You do it only because you're already leaning away or towards your feelings. But as I said, they are invisible in front of you. All you see is sense and sense objects, like sense objects really. You don't even see your sense organs. And that's why immediate assumption that, oh, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. That's why when people suffer ignorantly, the first thing they do is they blame the thing that they perceived that made them suffer. Because they don't see that it's their attitude in regard to how they felt when they perceived that. That's where the suffering is rooted. So if you say something that upsets me, I blame you for my suffering. And for as long as I don't look basically peripherally from you, I will never see the root problem of my suffering. And same, like when there is a prospect of pleasure, I don't see it peripherally as my attitude towards that agreeable prospect of my feeling. I see the sense organ, sense object, sorry. So I want that then. And for as long as I don't learn how to restrain and look beyond it while it's still there, I will not see where the problem is really rooted. So that way it's not like, oh, I restrain, then I see my feeling, then I say no to sense organs, then I have uprooted it.
No, I wasn't talking in such a
I know,
way.
but it can sound like that if you set it up as this list. But the point is, if you see the context of your feeling correctly enduring, you're already withdrawn from the pull of the sense organs. Even if there is still a pressure there, the fact is you're seeing more now. You are not rooted in that pressure. So if you sustain that long enough, either through contemplating impermanence of those sense organs upon which your own feeling depends, or the impermanence of the gratuitous there isn't feeling that you're leaning towards or against, you will be removing the appropriation from it.
Yes, by seeing that there cannot be any feeling without there being sense basis as a...
Well, no, by seeing that... No, see, you have no experience of no feeling. So what you just said would be a pure abstraction. Oh, there can be no feeling. That's inconceivable for you, how that would be without a feeling. Instead, you want to see that whatever feeling is there, how has it arisen? Can you even conceive how the feeling comes to be, or you just find yourself under it, so to speak, or affected by it, or inside of you? Whichever way, you find the feeling there, and you are not privy to its origins, where it came and how it came and why it came and where it will go. All you're privy to is the pressure that it exerts over you. And you perpetuate that pressure by choosing to then engage with getting more of that thing that made you feel pleasant, or trying to get rid and get less of that thing that made you feel unpleasant. So whatever's feeling's there, you want to understand its own anicca thoroughly, and you will stop leaning towards or leaning away. You will stop trying to get rid of it or appropriate it even more. And you will certainly be unable to ignore it, ignore the nature of it. Doesn't mean you need to constantly think about it, but it means, when you basically recollect yourself upon the presently enduring feeling, the true and the nature that became apparent of that feeling is seen with that recollection. That's when things become apparent and you understood the nature of it. And that's when wisdom starts taking place. That's why it's effortless. It's not that every time you feel you have to go through these motions. You do that as a part of training, but if the understanding is taking place, you will have to do it less and less. And then eventually, when you recollect the feeling, you recollect the true nature of it. It means there is no room for any craving to arise, because the basis for craving is forgetting, ignoring the true nature of it, lapsing from it. So even when you're not thinking about a particular feeling that's now specifically enduring there in your experience, that feeling is still enduring there in your experience. That's where you can recollect it. You can go back to it. So when you go back to it, you want to come back with as much wisdom that you, or knowledge, understanding of it, that you developed beforehand. You want to come back with it, to it, and see it clearly. That should be your goal. Up until whenever you think it rightly. No room for distortion anymore.
That it's arisen by itself.
It's there. Being clear about the nature of a thing being there to the extent necessary, it's basically the fulfillment of Satipatthana. He knows the body is there to the extent necessary. He knows the feeling is just there to the extent necessary. Extent necessary for the final knowledge. So yeah, it's arisen on its own, all of that, but you want to see its there-ness, so to speak. That it's impenetrable to you. All you can do is resist it, or lean towards it, or ignore it. Nothing else you can do about it. It's impenetrable to any of your efforts. Everything is around it. And that's the nature of any feeling. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. That's the nature of any aggregate, for that matter. It's unownable.
You said all you can do is lean towards it, lean away from it, or ignore it. But there must be an alternative, otherwise there's no freedom from suffering.
No. Alternative is to not lean towards it, not lean away from it, and not ignore it.
Okay, so there is, yeah, obviously there's other three options.
Well, no, that's one option. That's really...
4 options, let's say.
No, you don't have 4 feelings at the same time. You only have one feeling. Which means you're either leaning towards, leaning away, or ignoring it. Which means you only have one option to stop doing what you're doing at a time towards that feeling. So when they asked the Buddha, how did you cross the shore? Because he said, if I kind of went against the waves, I got tired. If I pulled backwards, I got swept away. If I was trying to kind of stay in the middle, I sank. Oh, so Master Gautama, how did you cross the shore? He said, by not fighting the waves, by not pulling backwards, and by not standing still. Which means, at every given time, there is one feeling enduring that you... Yes, if you try to understand it theoretically, it's going to be a mind boggle. Oh, the three, and I have to find this kind of basically self-contorted position where I engage in all these 3 aspects. That's impossible. No, it's recognition that there is only one feeling at a time being felt. Which means, by default, you will either be leaning towards it, away from it, or ignoring it. Which means that you only have one option. To not lean that, do not do that which you're doing at a time, whichever leaning that is. And you cultivate that every single time when there is a present enduring feeling for the extent necessary for 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 months, 7 years. The wisdom will have to arise. Because you have basically been preventing craving from growing further. Because as I said, craving, bhava, whatever you want to take it, whichever aspect you approach it with, needs maintenance. Needs sustaining. It's not a static thing in that sense. So how do I do all these things? Discern as clearly as you can, peripherally, what is the presently enduring feeling, mood you are under. And then don't try to fix it, get rid of it, explain it, find your craving in it. Just try to not forget about it. Let it endure while you don't specifically try to think about it either. Like, oh, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling like that. No, you are feeling like that whether you say to yourself how you feel or not. So the clearer it becomes on that peripheral level, the less you would be resisting it. Because again, you are not doing the craving. Craving is the result of you not knowing the nature of feeling, for example. So you can't just stop craving as a matter of choice. But you can remove the necessary basis for craving, which is lack of knowledge, ignoring, lack of understanding, lack of clarity in regard to that which endures.
one way to develop clarity in regard to that which endures is it to discern the signs of the mind. So, for example, an angry or lustful mind will have.
Yeah. You can discern the presently enduring mood as a phenomenon, not as an object of your attention, but as a thing that endures there, kind of, regardless of whether you attend to it or not. That's already kind of discerning the shapes of your mind, the signs of it, the characteristics of it enduring on that general level. Because the problem people have is even when they get the idea, they're used to engaging ideas only on the particular level. So I have to make it an object of my attention. And then it ceases. You cease to be on the level you must be, which is the level of present enduring phenomena, which is always the background. So you cease to be mindful, basically. Mindful properly. So sense restraint needs to be guiding or rather guarding your behavior. And then this is something within that sense restraint, within unbroken sila, seeing the danger in the slightest fault. Within that now, you start seeing the present enduring mood, and you never cross the threshold of acting out of sensuality and anger and giving in to the cause aspect, which will kind of undo your work. So even if sometimes you're not clear about it, you still have your sila around as your guard. And you don't do these things. And then when the mind comes down, you get to rediscern that mood back on. When it's not as heavy, whatever pressure was exhibiting over you. And that's how you train your mind within that right context of sense restraint. And the more you do it, the clearer you become about it. Which means less and less active restraint you need to do. Because the passion is diminishing. Craving is diminishing because ignoring is diminishing. Until things become apparent to the sufficient extent. But it's a constant work. There's absolutely nothing mystical about it. It's just constant drilling. I remember, you probably heard me saying that in other talks. When I started reading the suttas, you come as a layman, just new to it. You have some ideas, but a lot of it is unclear. And you have these ideas of enlightenment, and if you do these things rightly, enlightenment happens to you, and then you're fixed, and then you're always in the bliss. But I remember I was puzzled by reading the suttas, and it's the Buddha, he trains himself that, and he keeps talking about the training. And to me, that was completely the opposite of why I expected enlightenment to be. It's like, wait, how'd you train that? If it's the real thing, it should just happen to you as like a divine providence, just sort of opens up for you. Not like training. Training, it's like you making it. And it's like, it's exactly that. You making your mind immovable in regard to things that move you because the mind is weaker than them. And that's when the Buddha said in the suttas, Arahant is not moved by his mind, it's the mind that gets moved by the Arahant. Like his thoughts, I'm not remembering exactly, but the point is, he's not the one that moves. The mind moves, not him. Because he developed himself more than his thoughts that used to move him around. So he doesn't get overpowered by his thoughts, he overpowers the thoughts. Naturally. And that's all those similes like a mountain and earth, water, fire, immovable regardless of what comes there to move you. So as I said, there's nothing mystical about it. It's just a constant work and drilling on the basis of precepts, seeing the danger. And you read the suttas and that's what Buddha said countless number of times. The man out of faith, young man, leaves his home, goes into homelessness, dwells restrained by the rules of Patimokkha, sees the danger in the slightest fault, restrained his senses, doesn't look for things that would incite desire, doesn't act out of anger, and then spends his mind clearing it of the unwholesome states. Whether he walks, sits, eats, talks, he doesn't tolerate there isn't sensual desire, there isn't thought of ill will. And even then I remember reading it at the first time, you think, okay, this is all, I'll do this, but then what do I do for the actual enlightenment? Because you want something specific that will result in this great experience. Like, no, this is what you do. But you just need to do it thoroughly. And then you realize, I don't suffer. Like the simile of the carpenter using the axe handle. He doesn't know how much his axe handle has wore off when he uses it. But it is wearing thinner each time he uses it. Until one day he comes into his workshop, picks up the axe and says, My entire handle has wore thin. I have to replace it. And that's how the monk who purifies his mind, one day he just recognizes, oh look, nothing for me to do anymore. I am truly free. And that's why, again, cannot be taken away. It did not come through your senses. It did not come on the basis of any being, anything happening to you out of your control. No, it came on account of you understanding the absolute nature in that most universal sense of your present enduring experience. Not once, not twice, but thousands of times. You trained yourself sufficiently.
Like you said that regarding feeling, that the extent to which I either lean towards or lean away or am ignorant about it is tied to not understanding it, not understanding that presently enduring feeling. And I often read in the suttas that this understanding takes place by directly discerning this presently enduring phenomenon, like feeling that is now there, that is now enduring, and then also discerning what it is dependent upon, what it is also there.
That will become apparent. See, already, like, exactly, discerning the present enduring phenomenon can only be done on a present enduring phenomenon. And that's that important point, distinction I was making, where when you end up thinking about the idea that you assume feeling to be, and you assume it to stand for the feeling, which means you're not discerning it on the level of the phenomenon, you're now just thinking about your idea, which can only have relative result, not the result of the wisdom. So that's when the experience as a whole, where things converge, if you go back to that, that's where you would discern it. And that's when it will become apparent. Like, oh, it's dependent upon this. You cannot have feeling without having this. Either way, I am redundant. My sense of ownership is, there's no room for it. Whether I ignore it or not, these things don't know about me, so to speak. So I can only be affected by the feeling. It's not a two-way relationship. It's only me who suffers on account of feeling. Feeling is unaware that I exist. So the more these characteristics of the present enduring feeling are kind of become apparent, the more dispassion towards it you will experience. The less ability to crave and lean to, because you always lean because you still assume you can make a difference to it. And you assume you can make a difference because you're not clear about it. Sorry?
So it's actually part of one single insight.
Yeah. It's basically just taking the same insight further and further, and more things become apparent through the same insight. The Four Noble Truths is just one noble truth. It's the truth of suffering. Presence of craving means presence of suffering. That's the truth. Through that truth, you know the absence of craving means absence of suffering, regardless of how disagreeable the circumstances are. Through that truth, you know then how to sustain the absent craving. You know the path, you know the way leading out. But it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just one, different aspects of one, then you get through the other one through the same framework.
That's why somewhere it is said that the one who sees one of the Four Noble Truths sees them all, actually.
Yeah. The one who understands basically the principle of craving, suffering, craving, understands the arahantship.
So when I discern a presently enduring feeling, I really discern it, and I also see that I'm pressured by it, and that I can basically do nothing about this feeling being there and being pressured about it, and that my leaning away from it and my craving towards it and my aversion towards it or my ignorance is basically just dependent upon not seeing the presently enduring feeling.
That's what I mean. You end up sort of in a like a little irony of, oh, you're pressured by the feeling, which is why you give in to the thoughts of trying to understand the feeling that is rooted in craving, that maintains the pressure. But you do everything to be free from the pressure. But it has to be like that in the beginning. That's what we meant. Craving is to be abandoned by the means of craving. So yes, first you crave through your thoughts to be free from craving and pressure of the feeling. But see, through developing more and more correct mindfulness, you get to see, so I can think these things without craving, and when there is craving, I will not think it. So because of the previous cravings in the past of wanting to be free from suffering, now you actually ended up practicing Dhamma correctly. So you abandon craving by the means of craving. But not you abandon craving through constantly engaging repetitively through the same craving. No, you perpetuate it. So you abandon craving through learning how to not engage with craving anymore, for which you had to crave initially, to that idea. I want ideal to develop. It has to be affected with craving initially, and that's fine. But you want to see through it. Same with the conceit in that same sutta. Conceit is to be abandoned by the means of conceit. Such and such monk hears that another monk became an arahant. He thinks to himself, if he can do it, I can do it. Really conceited thought. Quite unwholesome. But because of it, he actually starts restraining more. Starts reading the suttas more. Starts really paying that attention to what's happening in the background of his mind. And he uproots the conceit eventually. And there you go. He's free now.